And that's when she left Motown, which I wish she hadn't. Oh my God, I wish she hadn't. I think that was a horrible mistake she made.
Have you ever met an unassuming power player? I've met a few of them in my lifetime, but this one is like one of the tops. I met her when I worked at WBLS radio as a teenager. She turned out to be one of the top female executives in R&B music. And did I mention she was one of the first Black women doing it? Well, she was. Her name, Maye James-Holler. And I had the pleasure of speaking to her. Not only did she work in records, but she's one of the few who went from records to radio. Please get ready for Maye James-Holler. I'm Lydia Nicole, and this is Acting Smarter Now. You were in the thick of the music industry right as it had the most transformation. I mean, everything was happening in the 70s, from FM coming into fashion to music changing, R&B exploding and becoming more mainstream. What was it like for you, first of all, as a woman coming into the business and then being at a record company where you were in charge of people's material? You were doing promotions. How was that?
The first word I thought of, exciting. It was just, things were just spinning, but in a good way. It's just something new all the time. You know, the sounds were changing, and exciting would be my first thing. And I didn't think so much about being a woman in the job that I was doing, because I love music so much that I didn't think about a woman until it came to money. The rest of the time, it was like I was just out there doing my thing, you know.
So let's talk about being a woman and the money during the 70s. How was that? What did you have to fight for your money?
Initially, I was kind of learning stuff. But once, I guess this is kind of going farther ahead, I got to a point that I realized I was making people a lot of money, my ideas. And then that's when the money came in. Yeah, even though I got more money, you still didn't equal men. Well, women don't even equal men today, I think. I think they try to give them a million less, you know. But I know between the love of the music and what I was able to get at that time, it was so different. We were just coming out of a time where women were still accepting that they had married and have children and go to work. If you had a job, you go to work, you come home, and you still got to cook and do all those things. And you sort of thought it was normal. You know, when we found out that the man would have the job, the woman would have the job, but she gets home, she got to still work, and he just sits on the couch. And we were accepting of that at that time. A lot of women, maybe not all women, but it was just something we did, you know, I did. And raising one child, you know. But I just did it, Lydia.
Your first entree into the record business was when?
When I worked for my friend Mary Wells. We eventually became best friends, but then we were just friends. And she asked me to go on the road with her because she felt like people were stealing from her and she could trust me. I said, girl, I can't do that. What are you talking about? She said, yes, you can, May. Yes, you can. So I took a chance. I'm glad I took that chance, because I ended up doing so many more things than I expected to do. So being in Michigan, traveling with Mary, going back and forth. We drove all over the country. She did the Motown tour, and did the bus tour too. And it was just a lot of back and forth, but exciting, because nobody thought it was going to become so big, the industry, the Motown.
So was this in the early 60s or the late 60s that you were?
It started in the early 60s. And because I work with Mary, and again, I love music so much that's my undercurrent. I just love being around the music. And so that's how I started in this industry, working with her. Had it not been for Mary, I would have never left Michigan, I don't think, to get to New York. So after we kind of skipping ahead on things, but after when Mary left Motown, let me go back. Mary left Motown, we went to New York to look for companies. Then we ended up moving to New York, when she left Motown. And she was a big deal because at that point, my guy had pushed the Beatles the Beatles was number one, number two, number three, number four, number five on the Billboard 100 chart. Then my guy pushed them down to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how exciting things were and how big she was. And that's when she left Motown, which I wish she hadn't. Oh my God, I wish she hadn't. I think that was a horrible mistake she made. But for me, that's how I got to New York. And then after she got married and went to California, I got married and I didn't want to go to California. And so I started doing temp work. And they sent me to Scepter Records to do temp. They said, we'll pay you more because I know you don't like to go on the west side of town, but we'll pay you more because every time we send someone there, they can't do it. So they sent me in, and working at Scepter Records before the time was up was for 3 weeks. Florence Greenberg asked me to stay in their executive department with her executive secretary. And that's how I got to Scepter Records.
Okay, I'm gonna take you back a little bit because there's a lot of history that you have. You are working with Mary Wells. You are on the Motown tour. That was a big deal.
It was.
What were some of the memories that you have of that period? Like, what did you learn from the other artists? What did you learn from management side that you thought they were messing up with? I mean, there's got to you must have a book just from that period alone of being on the road with her.
You're just moving, you're just taking care of things. And when she first asked me to go on the road with her, I just thought like a companion, just to watch things out. I had to collect her money. It was 2 shows. Okay, she did 1 show. I got to go get the other money before she could do the second show. Then I had to pay the band. We traveled with a band, and we traveled with a guy to take care of your clothes. A valet and a band. So I had to take care of all of it and keep everything. And then if we were on the road for a long time, I would put Lydia, I would put the money in my bra. And the next morning I had to go to find in Western Union, these little hick towns, and send the money back, send it to the main office, to the lawyer's office in New York. So I just did it. And when I think about it, I said, boy, I wasn't afraid. I mean, we'd be in these hick towns, and I just go find it, I said, we got to find it. I just go. And I was like, when I think back on things I see now in the news, I said, dog, I had a lot of nerve back in there. But when you just do, you know what I'm saying? You just do it. So so that was the money and stuff. Mary and I just had a lot of fun. We were such good friends. We just did a lot of laughing. But when she went on stage, she would always count on me to tell her how she sounds when she come off. She would hear stuff that the band was messing up on, but I wouldn't hear it. I would be on the side and try to get in the audience, and she would put on a good show. But you know how artists are; they can pick the smallest thing. And she said, "May, how did that sound?" And I would tell her, "Mary, you might have heard it, but the audience didn't hear it," and that made her feel good to know that what was coming across was a great show. But then she said, okay, go get Melvin in here. And she'd tell him or whatever, they would go back and forth. So I did just kind of her person. She trusts me a lot and I trust her a lot. And I don't know. I mean, we had a few incidents that we were kind of afraid.
What was one of those incidents that you had? Because we're
Oh, we
talking
were we
early
were
60s.
we were driving down. I think it was in the Carolinas, and the Ku Klux Klan would have a meeting. I think on Sundays at a certain time. It was like it seemed like 100 cars, and they would come with the Ku Klux Klan sign. We were kids. We were so afraid. So we had kind of this. The driver, he was just driving real slow because and we had a Cadillac. Black folks in a Cadillac, and we drive real slow. And so we were all fighting, but no, nothing happened. They just went on. But I mean, it was like very, very frightening. And a couple of times we stopped to get food. We would just sit on the stool, just waiting to bring our food away. But I don't think I think they thought we were going to eat there. Not the people waiting. At that point, you could order food in the South. I'm going fast. You could order the food, and people could. I guess you could sit if you wanted to eat. We didn't want to do that. We just wanted to get the food because late at night, and some white man said, "We got niggas coming in here." I was so afraid. I'm so dramatic. I was so afraid. But we just ignored it, we just ignored it. But my heart was beating fast. So we went up to the room, and when we got in the room, the window was like alone from the top to they had just started making those motels rather, where you walk outside and get your key and go in, and that's a long window. And then our beds are there. And I'm going, suppose they find out what room we're in. And shooting. Oh God, it was a mess. But those are little things that happen in between. But one thing about being young, you're not afraid. You're not afraid. You just sort of get through it.
How old were you at that point?
Like about 20 or something like that.
Wow. And who was the driver of the Cadillac?
We had a couple of drivers, but John Oden was our driver. And he had been a boxer, a retired boxer. And that was it. He was a nice guy. And then also on the road, I tell this story about when we would drive we would have to go pee. And you can't go anywhere and use the bathroom. So we said, John, we got to go to the bathroom. So, okay. So we drive till we could find where the low bushes are, but high enough so me and Mel could get out. When we get out rolling toilet paper, we go out in the bushes to use the bathroom. Wow. And we thought it was so hilarious. We would just laugh. So those are little things that happened back in those days.
What made Mary want to leave Motown at that period?
A couple of people mentioned that people were unhappy with Motown because of the money and things. Now that was higher than my pay grade, contracts and money. I mean, I just had the basic idea, but she felt like she wasn't getting her money. And so they put that in her head. And she was talking about it, the idea. So and then she talked to her, when we got back to, this happened on the road, a couple of artists mentioned it. So we got back to Detroit, she mentioned it to her ex-husband. And they said, yeah. Because you hot now. You can go here, you can go there. So I just wish she had stayed, I wish she had stayed. I think it was a terrible mistake at that time, maybe later on. But at that time, I thought it was a terrible mistake.
And where did she end up going?
Well, we moved to New York, and she ended up signing with 20th Century had a label. I don't think they kept that label long. 20th Century had a label. And they promised her movie roles. So, and they didn't do anything like that. And the first album sucked. You know, they told her all kind of stuff to get her to sign that didn't come to pass.
So now you're in New York. You decided you were going to stay there and you're doing temp work.
Well, it's more stuff that happened after that. It didn't happen right then and there because we lived in New York for a good while. It was just that maybe about a couple of years later, Mary decided to get married. And I decided to get married. So I actually left her in New York and came to Michigan to have my baby because I was having, back then they used to call it threatening a miscarriage.
Oh,
so
wow.
I came home and then I was going to go back, even though I was married at that time. And Mary called me and she said, May, she was married to Cecil Womack, which is Bobby Womack's brother. Mm-hmm. And she said, Cecil is telling me to move to California and Bobby Womack can help me with my career. What do you think? I said, well, he's a big star. I guess he can. And if I wanted to come to California, I said, I don't think so, Mary. I said, I have to think about it. So I didn't. I went back to New York. And that's when I started doing temp to just to get out there and see what was going on. And I knew it was a lot of labels there, but I just had to sort of, I had the baby and I was just trying to get myself together.
So Florence what was her position at Scepter at that time?
Florence Greenberg owned the label.
Okay.
She's the woman that's responsible for Dionne Warwick, the Shirelles, Chuck Jackson, this pop record. She had Raindrops Keep On. BJ Thomas. This woman was bad, I'm telling you. She was right up there with Berry Gordy, but they didn't have their sound like Berry Gordy got his own sound. But she was ahead of him, and she was, she was fighting, and she could cuss like the rest. I would hear her, even though she owned the label, she's had to fight these men, So I just admire her so much. And when that company was good about promoting from within. So I was working I worked for a couple of the sales department, a couple other people. And then Chris Jones, our friend, was the national promotion director. And I was then started assisting him. And I started calling radio because I knew some of the programmers from working with Mary. So when Chris found out that I knew these people, he was like, good, call, you can call me, this stuff. But the real story is I was sitting in my little hut thing over here in his office over there. And he said, I hear him in his office and he's saying, yeah, but I can't get Bill Williams on the phone. I send him, I send him the music. I call. I can't get him on the phone. So he's telling that to our boss, Florence's son-in-law was next to her at Scepter Records. So when he left his office, I said, Chris, I said, I know Bill Williams. Do you want me to call him? You know Bill Williams? I said, yes. So he said, yeah, call him. So I don't think he believed me. So I went back to my little desk and thing, and I called. And Bill came to the phone, and I told him about the song. And it was one that was not a great song, but we were getting some radio play on it. And so he said, okay, call me tomorrow at a certain time. So I called him the next day at a certain time. So he gave me the ad. Well, that whole floor went crazy. Florence, May, you know those people? I said, I know Rodney Jones too. I mean, I I didn't know my worth. You know what I'm saying? From working with Mary, she did a lot of free shows for the. That's how you did it. They call it hops. You know, you would just sing along with your record. But she did that for all the program directors. You know, the ones that even some of the smaller ones. So I got to know them just from that. And so I didn't realize that's what I'm trying to say. If these people, I could have used them to do things, but I didn't know to do that. I just hadn't thought about it. So anyway, when Chris left to go to manage Stevie Wonder, that's when he moved to California from New York. Florence gave me his job. Just because she's a woman, so she was so cool. Had that been a man, I wouldn't have gotten that job.
Wow.
Like that easy, I don't think.
So give me a couple of things that you learned from Florence, because she's somebody we don't really hear about. I mean, we hear Berry Gordy all the time, but we don't hear about Florence. So what were a couple of takeaways that you learned from her, or that really made a difference in your life at that point, just seeing this woman operating and getting things done?
Everything about her. And she wasn't, a lot of people didn't think she was nice. I could see past the toughness. And so I just wasn't afraid of her. A lot of people were afraid of her in that office. But I love how she walked in there with her dog and she just, you know, I'm here. Lydia, when she stepped out that elevator, oh, you had never seen men so nervous. I used to just laugh to myself. I wasn't nervous, but I loved to see how everybody was so nervous. And she called me in that office back there. I'm telling you, they'd be so, because her office is on one end. You got to walk a long hallway to get to her office. People are so nervous. I loved it. I just admired it so much because she was a woman and she was in charge, you know, so pretty much everything. You know, I had never thought about this until you asked me that question. But now I think a lot of her is in me that helped me to go ahead and do what I did and not be afraid to do, you know, what I did.
Were there a lot of other women in the company with you, or were you one of the few working for her?
Florence, Inga Freed was Florence's main, because I had to work under her. And she was her executive secretary. And she was married to Alan Freed. You remember the story about Alan Freed? That was even before my time, you know, when he was the first white man to play black music and got in trouble for it. Well, he was much older than Inga though. So that was her secretary, Inga Freed. It was just Inga and Florence. And the rest of the women there were just secretary, were just, you know, on a lower level than them. But they just sort of did their thing and went home. But they brought me right into the executive office to work with Florence, put me in to work with Inga Freed. So, you know, anything that was changing in the office, Inga said, well, you go tell them this, you go do this. So I was up there with the bosses. So that it was other women. I don't know. I don't know. I found that the secretaries there, it seemed like they just wanted 5 o'clock to come, you know. And I'm the kind of person that if they play some music, I'll stay to 7. The ladies, you know, just to hear to see what's going on. So I was more like that.
So now you're at Scepter Records and you are listening to music. Do they have you listening to the songs before they decide what single they're going to put out? Or how was the vetting process for the songs during that period?
I don't think they ever asked me about a single, but they would ask me as soon as they made a decision. Sometimes they may have 2 songs, which one you like. Most of the time, they would have decided, I guess the artist or something, they had decided what they were going to put out, and they would want to know what I think. Can you get them? Who can you get to play? What do you think? You think Frankie will like this? You think, like that. But you just heard music all the time. They had a studio downstairs, and they had a gospel label there called Hop. And so I just love the fact that you just heard music. If you went to the other floor, you heard music. I just enjoy working where I heard music a lot. And I'll tell you a story about Hop Records. Shirley Caesar was on that label. So I heard this song, No Charge, by Shirley Caesar. The guy was playing in the gospel division. And so I heard this song. I said, I bet you Frankie will play that, to myself. So I go to the boss and I say, would you have a problem with me bringing, it was all together, but they seemed to have their separate thing over there. So I didn't know how to interfere with it. But I say, I think Frankie played No Charge. I like, you think Frankie played No Charge? They were so excited. You do? I said, yeah, I really do. Yeah, take it. So I took it over there. And of course, Frankie played No Charge. You remember that song?
I don't. Now, was that when BLS was still LIB-FM?
No, it was regular.
Was already? Okay, okay. I mean, I remember we played some gospel songs at the station during that time.
This sounded like a gospel song. It's more like it told a story about this woman. This little kid is always asking for money from the mother, and then she was telling him about asking for money and no charge. It was a story, kind of one of those kind of folklore kind of songs, more than a gospel. It wasn't like a lot of gospel music going on. Shirley Caesar. You should listen to it when you get and so Frankie played it, and then they got to play. Philadelphia came in, everybody played No Charge. And I don't know where it went on the chart, but it did really well. It didn't go number one, but it did very, very, very well. And that's because Frank is so wise. And he knows that people need to hear that message, that song.
He was a champion for music.
Yeah.
If it was a good piece of music, he would play it. It didn't matter. He had courage. He had courage in programming.
Right.
If it tickled his ears, he would play the music. Right. He didn't care what genre it was. And
and the way he could mix it all together was amazing.
Yeah. And that's what made BLS number one, was his ability to hear songs and bring them all together. Because that was what made BLS so special, was the music,
that's right.
The sound, that's right. The inclusion. We talk about inclusion today, but back then it was really inclusion without hitting anybody over the head saying, we got to include this. It was like, no, this is music. Music is inclusive.
Scepter Records also a record company to come out with doing the 12-inch mix. Break.
Yes.
And then it started. So Scepter started that. And Mel Sharon worked there. And he was really good with the club stuff. So Florence did a lot of things that actually was a play on Broadway. It didn't last long, but the people that saw it, that was really good. And they said they were going to do a movie on her for years, and Bette Midler was starring as her. But I still hear it's going to come. I don't know.
So you're working as Scepter, and you're starting to connect the fact that you had made all these connections on the road, and now you're able to utilize them. Now you're able to call and say, hey, can you play this record? Can you take us through the process of what it was like to promote records during that time? Like, from when you first got a record to who decided this is the record we're going to try to get to number one? Because you didn't just have one record. You usually had a few records. And some were not very good. Some records were, I know that because I worked at Casablanca, and some of the records were just not good.
Yeah, we call them work records.
Oh, see, we call them dogs. We call them dogs. They're barking. They're barking.
The record itself would tell you it was going to be number one. And what I mean by that is there were so many times that I thought a record was good and it was disappointing. The timing wasn't right for that sound, So it's not, a lot of the records could have been good, but it came out at the wrong time or something. You know what I mean? Because everybody say, oh, this is good, this is good, this is great. And you go, God, sometimes I would take it over to Frankie and he just look at me with them doe eyes. Why are you bringing this to me? He would give me that look and I'd be like, oh, it sounds good in the office. I wouldn't say it, but I would think it, you know. But anyway, once you start promoting a record and it started to get played, and then other people come in, you know, you go to other people start to like it. Even the people didn't like it right away, you would say, well, Frankie's playing and then Butter is playing and you know, this and that, and they'll give it another listen. And you can kind of start building your radio station. And then when they start to sell, when the distributors will call up for the music, that's how you really know when it starts to sell. And then you know, you just keep pushing. And then if you start out R&B, it gets to a certain level, then you bring in your pop department because now it looks like we got something that they'll play, and it so the music sort of tell you it's going to be number one. Back then, like today, people do all other kind of things to get number one. But then when we were working just with the music and the raw music industry and the radio, that's what predicted the music, which I love so much. I love like going home like on a Monday, and then by Friday, the boss would call you, well, you know, this distributor called and this was good. And then it just felt so good, like you're doing something, you know. I remember with Enchantment, with the first song, Gloria, I was out here visiting my mom. Was a holiday season. And they called me and said, Maye, you got a hit. I said, what do you mean? They ordered 5,000 pieces today on Gloria. It just came out. It was a huge distributor. And it was during Christmas time when things are slow. And they wanted this music. So that's how we knew we had a hit with Gloria. Just like that.
Was that your first big hit when you were working at Scepter?
No, at Scepter Records, the first hit we had there that I worked on was Independence, Leaving Me. Jesse Jackson's young brother was in that group. And Marvin Yancey.
Was this
Chuck
Jackson? Mm-hmm.
And Marvin Yancey, that later on married Natalie Cole. And Chuck and Marvin Yancey produced Natalie Cole. So that was my first one that did really well there. And then we had the BG Express, and we had, the Brass Construction was at that point, it was moving over to Roadshow Records. So when Scepter Records closed, I went with Roadshow, which was the company had brought BT Express over, started kind of together. And we had a couple other things in between.
And
I can't think of them.
Why did Scepter close? What happened that Scepter shut its door?
I never really knew what was going on. But I think it had something to do with the times changing, and we hadn't had a lot of hits. They passed on a few things. They passed on it. This guy brought me the Commodores. And so I listened to it and gave Sam to listen to it. And they didn't want it. Then there was another group, 2 or 3 groups they brought. And even Natalie Cole, they passed on that. So I don't know if they were having money problems or what, but I kind of think it's a mixture of the two. And you know, with those independent labels, even though I like working for them because it felt so like a family, mm-hmm. They didn't really have the same money that majors. If they start losing enough money, they can't stay
open. What happened to Florence?
Florence, she just retired and lived good.
Okay.
And I went to see her right up till the end. I loved her so much. I went to see her. I just stayed in touch with her during the whole time after. And then, you know, when she was living in a senior place, you know, but a fabulous place. So me and my husband would go over and have dinner with her. And then, you know.
How was it working in the business? And you are married and you have a child. How are you being able to balance all of that?
It was like working any other job, really.
No, not really. Working in the record business isn't a 9 to 5. You have to take people out to dinner. You have to
Yeah.
you have a lot to do. If you're lucky, maybe you get to come in at 10, but you may not leave till 10 at night. You make it seem like it was no big deal, but it was a big deal.
Yeah.
How did you manage? Because there was a lot of nights you had to work late.
I don't know. I just made arrangements. I had great people to help me with Chrissy if I had to work late. The lady that babysit her, if sometimes I had to be really late, she would keep her all night. But she lived like half a block from me. But she was really good with that. It was like what I was saying earlier. You just got it done. I didn't look at it like this. I was just excited with my work, and I liked what I was doing, and I didn't find it that hard. If you look at people that really worked hard before, the women that how they had to work before, years and years before, it was a picnic next to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just knew what it was. Her dad was an entertainer, so he knew about traveling because sometimes he'd be traveling during the time I was working. So he understood what I was doing. And sometimes in the summer, she would go and spend 4 weeks or so with my mom. You just make it work.
You balance. So now you are at Roadshow. What was that change like for you? Because it had to be a big adjustment.
Yeah, it was. It was exciting. It gave me a little title, vice president, and all that. And it was a step up. It was different, a whole different thing. It didn't work out, but we had an album on Tina Turner, so she came to town, and I had to take her around and work with her, and she was such a joy. That was one of the things I remember about Roadshow that I really liked meeting Tina Turner and seeing, and she just told me her whole story. She told me that whole movie.
Wow.
And she said she felt like I should know the truth because she said you'll hear other things. And that was in hopes that our album would explode. It didn't. But she just wanted me to know her real story. But she's such a wonderful person, such a delight. Enchantment was was like Roadshow. So that did really well for us. Again, it was an independent label. And we had a couple of things in between that were okay. Like you were saying, those work records, but did okay. And then it lasted about 3 years and I left.
Okay. And where did you go to after that?
I went to work with Tom Cossie and I sort of had my own offices and I did my own independent stuff.
Oh, okay.
I did his stuff and then I could do other things.
And who was Tom Cossie?
Tom Cossie, he had worked at RCA Records I tell you what he's known for. This is a good one. Chic.
Oh.
He brought Chic in the industry. The first single they had out, he borrowed $5,000, Tom, from somebody to put that single out.
Wow.
And the rest is history. But he was like a pop promotion guy, so he was involved. I don't know his whole story, but at RCA, he was I guess a top pop promotion person, and they did a lot at RCA, which I don't know. But that's what. By the time I went to work with him, he had his own offices, and he asked me to come there. All I had to do was help him with his music, and then I could work other music.
I'm gonna go back for a second because you were instrumental in giving Ruben Rodriguez an opening into the music business. You introduced him. You gave him a platform to come into the music business and be able to become the person he became. You opened the door for him. I want to know how many other people did you open the door for? Because you were always very good at including people and helping people along the way. You were always very low key. You were smooth, low key. We wouldn't know you were in the room many times because you were just quiet. You were watching. You never had you were never that boastful person coming in. Hey, I'm here. The party
Right.
starts now. You were always very mellow, very quiet, very chill.
Yeah.
As the kids say today, you were very chill. You were very instrumental in bringing people in. Tell me how you met Ruben.
Well, Ruben goes back to Scepter Records. The pop promotion guy, Pete Costain, came in my office. He said, Meg, I know this guy. He said, he's not in the record business. He loves music. And I think he was working at a record store part-time and a clothing store part-time or something like that. And he said, I know he'll do, with me, because we had discussed hiring somebody to promote record stores, to make us known, you take posters there, and so the record companies could be familiar with whatever we put out. They like those dog records.
In stores,
Yeah.
Set up a section,
Right.
promoting
Right.
and advertising that artist or that record. Yes. Take them 25 cleans as opposed to promo records. Yes. Go ahead.
You got it. I was thinking about saying that, not saying.
Don't go to the store unless you got some cleans for me. That was we had somebody out here in LA that we used to deal with. He said, don't be bringing me no promos. I want some cleans. If you come and bring some cleans.
Exactly. So anyway, he asked me a couple of times and I just didn't have the time. So he came back and so I said, okay. I said, we'll set up a time to meet this kid. So on the appointment day, I'm sitting in my office and Pete comes in. He said, this is Ruben Rodriguez. Ruben was decked out with a suit, his tie. And he looked so professional. And he walks in and he's young and he's with his suit. I just thought for a young man to pull himself together like that was impressive. So when he came in, we started talking and he seemed fine. I took Pete at his word. I just took Pete. I interviewed him, but I said, if Pete, I trust Pete. If Pete says good, I'm going to give. So I gave him the job. And it was $125 a week that I paid him to do that. But Ruben was so good. He was always reporting, telling me he did this, he did that. And I was kind of like, you should need to be telling this to Pete because I don't have time for this. But, yeah, but he would do it. So I remember one Saturday morning, my favorite Ruben story. And we had been out to a party, and now we had a lot of parties back in those days, listening parties and go to the club. And then instead of going home, you go to another club. So I'm in the bed with my hangover on a Saturday morning, right? And the phone rang. I had a special phone for my people to call. I'm going, hello, it's Ruben. May. He said, I need you to talk to, I'll make up a name, Joe. He said, I'm in the Bronx. I'm at whatever the name of the record store is. And I need you to talk. I didn't get a chance to tell him like I didn't feel like talking. Lydia. He said, so I said, okay. And I said to the guy, thank you. And, Ruben said, you like the music and thank you. And I went through it and I got through this call. And so after it was over, I said, Ruben, don't you ever call me Saturday morning again without, I said, we was out partying. He was out too, but he was, he's young and younger than me. But anyway, I just thought I was really impressed that he was out early in the morning doing his work. And the thing about it, he was excited about it. To me, it was just like a kind of throwaway job. But I guess no job is a throwaway job. But it kind of like, what I mean, back then, like if you work in it. But he used it because by him being so good, and I was so impressed with it. After a while, I started taking him around to different things and introducing the people and showing him how we worked. As time would go by, Bunky Shepard, which was the national guy for Motown, used to work over the distributor's office. I can't call the name
Alpha?
over there.
Was that Alpha Distributors?
Alpha. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He worked out at Alpha. And he would stop by my office every day at the end of the day, bunking. And because he knew Florence Greenberg and everybody, he stopped by every day, just about every day. And he said, May, he said, we need to hire a guy to do just New York, not regional, just New York. And he said, that kid I met over here, Ruben, what do you think about him? I said, oh, Frankie, he would be great. I said, because I took him to meet Frankie. I took him to meet Sonny Taylor. Remember Sonny Taylor? And he knows people and he's got a great personality and he's really serious about his work. So he said, okay. He said, well, I'm going to give him the job, May. He said, but only if you promise me that if he goes over to BLS and fuck up with the Lord, you gonna fix it. So I promise you, I said I wouldn't back anybody I didn't think was good. He's not gonna mess over the, but I promise you he can do it. That was Ruben's first. Well, I think he had done promoted a record for a Latin label. He had one record he'd done for somebody, but that was his first, record job like that.
Ruben was he was Spitfire. He truly was. He was.
Yeah, I mean, I said, well, you got to meet my friend. This is what I told Ruben. I said, you got to meet my friend Wanda Ramos because she's Puerto Rican like you. So I did that, and I used to take him around to the parties. And
look at all the people you connected.
Right.
All the people because you brought in Ruben and Ruben connected with Wanda. They were able to have a long relationship. Ruben was able to have a long relationship with Frankie.
Right.
I mean, you were the tree that the branches extended.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing. You did.
People used to say to me, some of the ladies, because I would take them around to the parties. And you remember Wanda used to have those parties up there, that loft she had. So I take them around. So I went there one night with Ruben and I think it was Barbara Harris and a couple of ladies say, here come May with her Puerto Rican. I didn't like that. Because the way I was raised, I don't talk about people like that, And I just kind of looked at them, like they were crazy. Like they was like, I'm dragging this kid around. But I just saw something in him and I just wanted him to see everything that went on,
Well, they were jealous. They were jealous of you, May. That's all you need to know. They were jealous. So how did you get to BLS, being in the record business on the promotion side? What got you to get to BLS to be in the music department with Frankie? Because Frankie had left under certain circumstances. He had left radio and then he's coming back. And now you're there to work with him.
But that's not the way it happened.
Oh, well, tell me. Tell me how it happened.
They had, I think this Legends thing that they have in California now, I think it had no, it wasn't the Legends thing, it was something else. Anyway, it was some sort of dinner that we had that they honored Frank. It was a luncheon. It wasn't a dinner.
Was that BRE? Was that BRE?
No, it was, I can't remember what it was. After it was over, not everybody, but about 10 people went to another restaurant and for drinks, because you know how we're in the record industry, like now it's after 2:00 and we're drinking. Frankie was sitting there right near me and he said, May, I want to talk to you. Could you, come by? And he said, I got an idea. I said, okay. So when I went, he said, May, I need a music director. And I was like, I thought he was asking me to tell him somebody. He said, no, I want you to do it. I said, Frankie, I never worked in radio. What are you talking about? He said, May, I know you a long time and you love music the way I do. And that's all you need. So I was like, okay. So took a day or so and I said, all right. Because he said, I need somebody to organize the program department. He said the labels don't even call anymore. They just send the music. And he had these little young white girls back there with tight jeans on and stuff. And they were sweet, but they didn't know what they were doing, you know. I don't know how it was about 3 of them back there in the programming. So of course he got rid of them before I came. And he wanted me to organ, you know, to say, you know, the music, get back, bring my record labels back and all that. So as soon as I got over there, I started up and I called people I know and we just brought them all back and organized it. And that's how I got there. He saw that, I didn't, Frankie. So I figured I'd just do it to add on my resume for a little while. I actually stayed there for a few years. But that's how I got there. And we did quite well. So we did really good.
So let's talk about, now you come to BLS and you are music director. You're starting to clean up the music room, the programming area. What was the first big item that you did while you were there?
Well, first thing I did was let everybody know that it's about business. Because I noticed people want to just hang in the back because it's music. The people within the inner city broadcasting would come down and just hang out. I stopped all that immediately.
That was the first
they thought
yes.
That's the first thing I did because this is serious. This is not a hangout place. You hear music, but you can't come in here and interfere with the people. Now I got mixers there. And back then they would write the shows out by hand, you know, for the jock that's coming out with you. Mm-hmm. So I can't have people interfering and stuff. I wanted to know what was the stuff that had to be done on time, and no joking and laughing. Oh, I didn't like that. Mm-hmm. I'm still like that. If you're supposed to be doing work, do work, you know. Now, that's the first thing I did. I would hear later on that people thought I was mean, but they respected me. And they knew they couldn't, you know. So that was that. I just wanted to make sure from a business professional way, everything is done right for Frankie. Because I know that the better stuff is done for him, the better everything is going to work out. So whatever ideas he had. And sometimes I had little ideas I'd run past him. I remember one day he came in, Marvin Gaye had passed away. And I just got this idea in my head. I said, Marvin Gaye's funeral is 1:00 California time. If Frankie comes on at 4:00. So now, why don't we have a funeral over the radio during the same time? So I pulled the music. I pulled Aretha's Amazing Grace and some other things. And so I said to the girl when he comes, I said, let me know when Frankie come because I'm going to go catch him before he come in the back. And so I taught my other stuff. So I called him halfway down the hall. I said, Frankie, I said, it's Marvin's, you know, they having a funeral. I said, I thought we could do something like that from here. And Frankie, like, you know how he'd be trying to act cool. But he loved the idea. I gave him the music. Girl, Frankie went in that studio, and that was the best thing. Wow. You know, because you know how he could speak and how he played the different music, and he would explain to the people that at this time, Marvin Gaye's funeral in California is going on. That was one of the cool things, little ideas I had. And over time, I would have other ideas. And Frankie sort of, he kind of trusted me a lot, you know. And I would hear later on, I would hear people say, well, just tell May will do it. So once Frankie was gone, I was hearing all these things, people, after he passed away, how he held me in such high esteem. But I know we respected each other's friends because I've been friends with him before he was famous in radio land. Actually,
now, did you knew him in Buffalo when you were working with Mary Wells? Is
That's
that
what I
what
was
you're
got.
connecting?
I met him. We were at the Apollo Theater, and Apollo Theater would have 4 or 5 shows a day. Rocky G was the MC, and Frankie would be hanging out there, right? He would come by dressing room and stuff, hang out. And then Mary reminded me of this because I forgot all about it. Years later, she was saying, May, don't you remember when Frankie asked could I bring him on if I could ask Rocky to let him bring me on stage? I said, no, I forgot about that, Mary. She said, yeah. She said, so I told him, okay, baby. I said, and then she did say to me, she said, when you see Rocky, tell me to come see me. But I had kind of forgotten putting the whole story together. But she told me, let that baby bring me on stage one time, Frankie. She just called everybody baby, right? And so that he Rocky let him bring her on stage.
Wow.
Right? So I forgot that story. That he was like I think at RL, just a job.
At RL, yes. At
Uh-huh.
WWRL, yes, yes,
I think
yes.
it's at RL then.
Yes. Then he went
Yeah.
to WABC, I think, and then he went to LIB FM. Then it became BLS.
Yeah. And another Frankie story I didn't think to tell when we did that other thing, but once Mary and I was living in New York, we had the apartment. But in my room, I had a little desk in the corner to keep all my, all Mary Well stuff and all that, little phone on the desk and all that. So Frankie wanted to come make calls to California. Remember, you had to pay for all your calls back then, the phone bill. So he wanted to come on. I said, sure, come use my little office area. So he come on, he'd be in there for hours calling people all over. And he tell me, one of the times he told me, said, May, he said, one day everybody in New York's gonna know my name. I said, oh, okay. I believe in dreams. I'm a Pisces, we dream all the time. So I was like, okay. And that, it's just that to me, that was really something to me. It was special that he said it.
He was a manifester.
Right. But years later, I would ask him about it. He said he didn't remember it. I said, Frank, don't you remember you came out and you told me one day everybody gonna know you? And he tried to think. He said, I did. I said, yes, you did.
That's how he walked. I mean, that was
who he was.
One of his superpowers is he walked as he was the owner of the universe.
Yes.
He just, it wasn't offensive. He wasn't offensive about it. He just took his.
That's who he is.
And I think that's what people loved and that's what people hated. That he was so confident in who he was and what he was doing that you either loved him or you hated him.
But I found more people loved him though.
Well, my recollection being at the station was, and being a kid, people would tell you all their stuff that they wouldn't really tell an adult. And they would vent about how bad Frankie was, and he wouldn't give him a time of day, and blah blah blah. So I would hear things that maybe they didn't tell other people, because it's like, right. She's the kid in the library. What is she gonna do? Who is she gonna tell? So, but yeah, no, I saw people who loved him and people who just could not stand him. But I also saw people who made sure that even though they didn't like him, they always put on a face. Like they would always come, oh, Frankie, can I get you something? What can I do?
Who are these people you're talking about?
I'm talking about record people. I'm talking about
really?
Yeah. They would dog him out behind his back, but then in front, it was like, can I carry your bags? Where are you going? Is your car downstairs? Do you need a ride? It was the two-face. The two-faced people.
I found a lot of people afraid of him. They didn't know how to interact with him. I found a lot of people didn't know how to interact with him. I remember Don Cornelius came to the station with that artist he had.
O'Brien.
Right. He came to the station, and Frankie wasn't there yet. And so we were talking, and that's when I got to know him, because I had met him before, but I had never interacted with him. And so I brought him in Frankie's office. I said, Frankie should be here soon, and blah, blah, blah. I was talking to him as if he and Frankie was cool. And he told me, he said, May, Frankie lived next door to me in Beverly Hills all those years, and he never speaks to me. I said, I was so shocked. So I said, what? So he said, he was a little nervous about asking him about the record. He came with somebody, somebody brought him up there. I guess that person would, if I hadn't been there, would have interacted with. And I said, well, I said, Frank is really a nice person. I don't, the Frankie I knew liked to be with people with a big name, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I don't know if Don said, May, to this day, I don't know what I did. I don't know why, but I'm just telling you, it's a big thing. So I said, okay. I said, well, Frankie's going to be in, and we go fix that when he come in. I said, Frankie, Don Cornelius here. He's been waiting for you, blah, blah, blah. And he came in the office. I pretend Don Cornelius had never told me anything. I just went on like they were guys, So the meeting went really well. And he said to me, thank you. He said, because he never, maybe, I think when I think back on it, Don was kind of like Frankie. If he walked into a room, he kind of just stood there. You know what I mean? People was afraid to approach him too. But he was really nice guy.
Yeah. He had the same air as Frankie.
Yes, and I think that's what I think they just had never gotten together. I think so. After that, they were cool.
What is one of your favorite stories at BLS, or maybe one of your favorite stories with Frankie at BLS?
I don't know if I have a favorite story, Frankie. I think I just told you different things that he did, but I don't know. I don't have a favorite story about Frankie. I mean, I told you about Mr. Magic, how he came there.
Tell that story.
Well, I do have a little story. I remember one day he came to work, and he said, May, he said, I walked in his office, and he was just standing there looking at doing. He said, I don't understand these kids. He said, they be out on the street break dancing in the middle of the day. They should be in school. And what is this break dancing thing? I said, well, you're right about that, Frankie. Fast forward back to, we were playing some rap music like everybody else was, like the Sugar Hill Gang and a couple other acts came out that everybody was playing across the country, mixing in with regular rotation. I liked the ones that we were playing, but I didn't know a lot about rap myself. But having a kid, I would probably knew more than the average mother my age, right? The ratings had come out. The book came out, and BLS slipped in the ratings. So I saw Frankie in his office looking sad. That sad look he had on his face. I said, Frankie, I said, this guy called Mr. Magic, Chrissy and her friends, Chrissy had a sleepover. They sleeping in these things on the floor. And in the middle of the night, I go to the bathroom, I hear snickering. And I'm like, it's about 2:30 something in the morning. And I know they were sleeping early because I saw them, right? And I just figured, well, they just woke up and they laughed and talked. I said, you guys still up with it? Said, we listening to Mr. Magic. I said, Mr. Magic. So they had a little radio down under the covers, and I guess they didn't want to disturb me. And they listened to this Mr. Magic. And so I said, these kids are listening to Mr. Magic on the radio. I was thinking maybe we could bring him in to come late at night, like on the weekend at 1 or 2, and just to say to the community that BLS is embracing some rap. That's what I thought. So he told me, no. Now he's not playing a rap, hiring a rap DJ. So 3 months go by, the book come out again, and we slept. And I walked, had the same look on his face. So I walked in there, I said, Frankie, I said, you remember I was telling you about that? He said, do you know where he is? Did you get it? And I said, yeah. I said, no. I said, yes, I did. So he said, okay, see, get him in here. So I go back to the back. I don't know where to get this man. So I called Chrissy. Chrissy, where did you hear this guy? She said, she gave me the call letters. So I looked up the call letters. And when I called the station, it was a foreign station. The girl didn't speak bad English when she answered the phone. And so I said, well, can I asked for Mr. Magic. She didn't know what I was talking about. She said, I have to get somebody else. She got another person on. They were speaking bad English. And I finally gave me the manager. And I said, Mr. Magic. He said, oh, he paid for 2 hours or something. So they were giving him that 2 hours on a Saturday going to Sunday, I guess. And they just took his money and let him go in there and do whatever he wanted. That was it. That's so okay. But can you give me a number on it? We know how anything like that. He could come there, he pay his money, he do it. I'm like, is this 1980 something? You sound like it was 1922 or something. You don't have no books, no information. So then I said, okay, now I'm really effed. What am I going to do? Then it hit me, Sugar Hill Records. So I called over and I asked for Sylvia Robinson. And I told her my dilemma. She said, May, you're in luck. His wife is our receptionist.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? So I spoke to Lisa and, got him over to the station. He came over about 2 hours later. And what surprised me was Frankie gave him, wanted to put him on 8 to midnight on Friday and Saturday, which I thought it would be midnight, something, So Frankie had that foresight in terms of the time to put him on. And he said, well, May, now you talk this guy up, we're going to hire him and everything, but I got to go to California and I don't need to hear nothing from, the Suttons. You're going to have to make sure that they're not playing all the way. So he put it all on me, right? But and I didn't know what they was playing. I knew the hits, but that other stuff was like, it was crazy. It wasn't like clear like it is today, It was all jumbled and they were mixing and but that's
and there was somebody else you brought in besides Mr. Magic.
Marley Marl is his he became famous. Frankie. Magic said to me, well, my DJ, I said, I thought you was the DJ. He said, no, he had this guy playing with him in that little foreign station. So he came in with his own DJ, which is Marley Marl. And and the other thing is he didn't have a license. He did not have a license. So I said, oh my God, I was so happy. Then he said, you don't have a license. I said, you don't have a license? What are we going to do now? So he said, well, I got this friend that got a license. And Frankie said, if I can bring him, if somebody in the studio with a license, because Frankie had asked him if he had a license. So I said, okay. That was Tyrone. I can't think of his last name right now. The Williams. Anyway, they called him Fly Ty. So he came in and he would be in the studio so he could be on the air.
Wow. Was he ever able to get his license?
Now that part I don't know if I followed through. I'm sure I asked about it, or he said that's what he was going to do, but I didn't follow. I to be honest with you. I'm sure he got it because he had to get it, but he just wanted to get the show started.
How soon after that did the station go up? Did the numbers go up?
Immediately. By the time the next book came out, immediately. Everybody was happy. And again, me quiet. I'm not saying that nobody. I'm just figuring, well, I know my people knew in the back, they said, oh, hey, oh, that's great. And it was, but, like people, if you don't talk about yourself, that's a lesson I learned. Being quiet sort of kept me in the background. Other people sort of started taking credit for something I did.
We are clearing that up right now. We are giving you your credit for what you did, because I do not like that. I do not like other people saying they did something when they did not.
People do it when I mentioned it to a couple of friends, and they said, yeah. That happens, but it's okay.
We don't rewrite history. We want to tell history the way it is. The way it is.
Right.
Now you're at BLS. Were you getting music and listening to it yourself to see, okay, I like this, let me pass this on to Frankie, or did he just bring in all the music to you?
No, all the music came through us.
Okay.
Through me. And I had a great assistant. His name Sergio Manzaban.
And Sergio became, is it the same Sergio that went on air?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. And so we go through all the music, and he was a club DJ, and then we hired Timmy Regiford came in as intern. He became very successful too. And Merle Bob, Timmy brought Merle and Bob, and Merle Bob became Sylvia Rome's vice president A&R.
Wow.
From my department. Wow. And she called me, and I gave him glowing, he never had a job before at a record company. I told her, you can't go wrong in hiring him, and his career built. He would call me every time he got a promotion. And maybe if it wasn't for you, Oh. Yeah, so we listen. I listen to everybody's music. We all listen and decide what to take into Frankie. I didn't take everything. Stuff, is no point in taking it into it. But the things that we figured he would work with, we give it to him.
So I have a question about the technology, because at that period, the record companies were going from vinyl to the cassettes and then to the CDs. They were bringing CDs to the stations right around that time. Was that while you were there that started switching the format of how the music was being carried? Because they, the 12 inches were there, but then they started doing the CDs. That started.
When did CDs come out?
Sometime in the 80s, because I remember I was at KGFJ, and for a period we had the cassettes, not the best thing, but we had cassettes, and then we went into the CDs, and I am thinking that I might be ahead of myself. It might have been a little later that the CDs came out. We went through the period with the vinyls, and then we had the 12 inches, and then the record companies were starting to, they were pressing CDs they were pressing vinyls with different colors. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Different colors. So, and some of them would even put the picture of the album on the vinyl.
The artist, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, press, and we had one we did one for Tina Turner. The thing I remember mostly, I think we stuck with the vinyl for a long time.
Okay. And that was a challenge, because you had to get fresh vinyls like at least every 3 to 4 weeks, because they would start to skip.
I'm trying to think if we were doing both at one time. It feels like we were doing both. Frankie played a lot of his own mixes. And that's what the guys, Sergio and Jonathan Fearing and Timmy and Merlin did. We had a record. Frankie would want a mix, so they would go in there and do a mix, and that's what we would play on the air. So I think we were using vinyl for a while.
Okay.
because he kind of did that till they got in trouble with the record companies and they start sending cease and desist because what you're hearing on the radio is not what they put out.
Right, right.
You know,
right.
They will release a record and then he'd have a special mix done with it. And so then some of the labels would just start pressing up his mix and selling them too. And some were pissed off. But Frankie always has something going on, I'm telling you.
You have been very good about keeping in contact with people in the business. You've always been very good to take care of people. Where did you get that from? Is that something you grew up with? Because you've always been, this business can be fickle in that if you're in a position where people need you, they're showing up. But the minute you're not in that position, they don't return your calls. That was never who you were. And so was that something you learned working with Mary? Was that something your mama just taught you to just be respectful and care about people?
Well, everything is me. It's just who I am. I was raised in a very Christian home. My mother's a missionary and stuff. So I'm sure that's a part of it. See, I like people, but I don't like a lot of people. You know what I mean? I love all of God's children, but there are people I can pick up instantly if they're full of BS. I don't bother. I sort of just treat them nice and go the other way. But if I genuinely like you, it's not because you're an artist. And it's not because you work here, you work there. It's because of you, who you are, who that person is. That's just how I see people. And so, yeah, I kept friends with people. One of my interns from, actually she was working at Beth Yenny. When I got that job, she came in as a hired person. Oh, because she was at LIB and she came. And to this day, we're friends. She moved to California many, many, many years ago. And we still talk and, we see when we can, because I just love Beth. I love her heart. I love the person she is. Just the same way I love Wanda. That person.
Wanda Ramos.
Yes.
We didn't talk about her.
And the same way that I love you. We lost touch because you're so fast. And but I just was in awe of you being so young. And the way you was learning all this stuff at radio, I was just so, I just always loved you for that. And Wanda loved you too, but I always love you for that. And so it's just, I know I was going to say to you, people used to say to me when I worked at BLS, they wanted to always take me out. And a couple of people I go out with, but I knew they didn't want to take me out for me. They wanted to take me out because at BLS. My thing was like, you bring me the music, if it's good, I'm going to try my best to get Frankie to play it for you. That's my job. But I know that they don't want to be in my company. They just want me to, and a couple of people asked me why I'm like that. I said, well, I could just sense. Now there were other people I would go hang out with because I like them. I just wanted to be with them. And I know they needed the music too, but I like them. You know what I'm saying? It's just that I would pick people. But if I could help somebody, I feel like that's what all human beings should be. God put us here to help each other. Life is a lesson. We learn as we go. Someone help me, and if I can help you, I will. It's just, it's just the way it should go. It's like each one teach one kind of thing. So you picked that up pretty good. That's who I am, and I forget about it. And I just do it and I'm done with it. And people would come up to tell me that I did things I didn't even know. Well, when you call this person for me, and I was able to do this, and I just said, okay. If somebody said, well, called me. Someone came up to the station, and I guess the boss didn't figure they were coming to see me, or something was wrong. Could you call them? And I called. I said, get them on the phone. I said, whoever the person was, I think one of them was Manny Bella. The person, I said, look, Manny comes over here every day, every music day, and we like him a lot. I said, that particular record just wasn't good. And I remember him asking me to do that. I don't know if he remember now. He was working for the distributor, one of the distributors taking different records. You know how they have several records.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if you could do something to help somebody, it makes me feel good.
What I love about you is that you are no nonsense. You don't play.
No.
you don't play. You're not trying to put a happy face on. It's like, no. Thank you for coming. Now you can leave. Coming from records to radio, you can smell the BS. I think when people start in radio and then go to records, they're in shock at how rude people can be. Because when you're in radio, everybody is throwing things at you. Can I take you to lunch? Can I take you to dinner? Do you want to ride? Can I, they're offering so much. But the minute you are not in that office, they will not even return your call.
That's right.
And as a kid, for me, working in radio, I don't even want to say radio, working at BLS, because BLS, I think at that time, was unlike any other station ever. I'm making a big thing, but it was unlike anything. It's kind of like Vice President Harris. People haven't seen all these crowds coming in for a candidate. It's just overwhelming to people. It's like, oh my God, she's filling up these stadiums. She's doing this. And BLS was like that. They exploded. It was amazing. And people were coming from everywhere. I mean, Elton John, and you had the Rolling Stones. We had all kind of people just coming to the station to see Frankie, it was amazing.
That's why I use that word exciting at first.
Yes.
You just described how I felt. It seemed like a lot of things were just happening,
Yeah, it was never a dull moment. I can count on one hand all the years that I was at the station where we had quiet. And usually when we had quiet was because Frankie was out of town.
Imagine it. The one thing I felt like, I am so happy they didn't have cell phones. All I could think about, because we would get a breather once he got on that plane to go to California.
But that was the only time it was quiet. That was the only time.
Yeah.
He's gone. And the days when he was coming back, it was like the lid was getting ready to explode. Everybody was so anxious about his return. Is Frankie coming in today? Is he back? It's like, ooh, it was so, it got a little silly, but it was never a dull moment.
Frank, that's the one thing that maybe I would, if I had to say something against Frankie, is that I think he loved that chaos with people, because he would try to get my little mixers. He would ask for different things, trying to get them going at it. They would try to say, no, what Frankie told me this, and Frankie told me, he kind of liked that, that part of people being excited and nervous. But when he come in, I'm the same one he left. I'm just like this, And Frankie's back. The girls would say, Frankie's back, Frankie's back, Frankie's back. I'm like, well, this is where you were. I'm just sitting back here, and then I would get up and I'd make my way up front. I said, hi, you have a good time, but I wouldn't let him do that to me, because I wouldn't let anybody do that to me,
I had someone ask me the other day if I were intimidated by Frankie. I was like, what? No, I was not.
Yeah.
I knew all of I knew all of his little tricks. The $100 trick. He only had $100. And so, and if he had people, record people in the studio with him, and I would always order his meal. But if nobody was there, I would always tell the guy, make sure you bring change of 100. I'd say, Frankie, the food's here. He said, okay. Oh, I only got 100. I said, that's okay. Give me the 100. The guy's got the money. Give me the money.
I wonder why he was like that.
I don't know, but he couldn't get away with that with me because I was like, oh, ain't nobody else here but me and Wanda. We're not paying for your food. We're not doing that.
He was like stingy. He was like stingy.
He was tight. He was tight with the money.
Yeah.
He was tight with the money. What did you learn working at the station that you didn't really, it wasn't anything you thought of when you were working in records?
Working at a record company, you're dealing with music. It was just like an extension of that to me, because I had to deal with radio as part of my job. So it was just like when I went over to radio, it was so familiar and easy for me because I knew what I knew the program director's job, I knew the music director's job. I knew all, everything tricks we did to get music on. That didn't bother me. It was just it's different because I found, especially at BLS, I found there was a lot of pettiness going on there that I didn't experience where I had worked. But it was very easy to me. I don't know. It was easy to me. I guess because I knew Frankie for so long and all that. I wanted to go back to Mr. Magic. We were the first station to hire in mainstream radio to give rap a platform for all rap. People were playing and mixing it up with the regular rotation. But Frankie was the first one to do that. So then, shortly thereafter, I don't know how many months after, well, it was a while after, when Kiss hired Red Alert to be their Mr. Magic, right? And so when I met Red Alert, I said to him, I got you that job. He said, yes, I do. Because if you hadn't brought Magic there, they wouldn't have thought to give a DJ a regular, So I said it kidding because he was a nice guy. I wanted to make him laugh, but I was half serious too. And then so it went on, then it went down. Philadelphia started doing it. And so it just went across the whole country. And that's because Frankie had the nerve to put this guy on at 8:00 on Friday and Saturday to play all rap music. And that's the history that I'll take credit for, me and Frankie.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah.
If you had to say two things about Frankie for someone who didn't know him, but two major things that he left on this earth for us, what would it be?
When I think about what Frankie left, what he left for Black radio, I mean, nobody can come along and take that place. The changes that was made in music and the way he just flowed within it and made it all work for so many years. And the fact that he had the nerve to play something that he felt that people need to hear. He didn't have to go upstairs and ask the white man, can I play music for Black people? Like they do today. They can't do it today. They got to let this white guy tell them what to play. It's so offensive. It's so disrespectful to me. And what Frankie left, I don't think that could be duplicated because he was working for a Black-owned, first I was a Black-owned station. But they tried to tell him what to do. And he would do little tricks and let them think that he was playing what they want. They used to always bug him to play Frank Sinatra and stuff too, like they did PK. But he would play something.
The difference, I'm going to interject here because the difference is Frankie started playing Frank Sinatra on BLS before anybody asked. Anybody. So so what they were asking him, he had already done years before.
Right. So I think Frankie, nobody can replace Frankie Crocker. I mean, 100 years from now, people be talking about it. When if they, I don't know how radio will be, but when they have to, they teach about it or they look back on what was doing. Just like I told you about Alan Freed, and this is way before my time. Frankie will be there. He'll have a place there. But just his I remember when I would be listening to him on the weekend. It was LIB FM then, I think. And he played something that was like not R&B, but it flowed so well. I was like, how did he put that in? And it was like, oh, I haven't heard that song in a long time. It was a great song, but he seemed like it felt sometimes like he was in my head. He would play music that I just need to hear and didn't know I need to hear. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He would find something that, because music means something. Everybody know where they were when certain music came out, certain parts of their life, what was going on when this was happening. That's how important music is. And he sort of did that to, at that time, there wasn't a lot of stations like it is now. And he did that a lot. But that's something that comes from it. He was born with that. That's something nobody taught him. He didn't learn it at radio school or nothing.
He took everything that he learned on AM radio. He was able to utilize the programming clock. He was able to use some of the key moments of that clock. I mean, we use that clock forever. The top of the hour,
right?
15 minutes in, the 30 minutes, the 45 minutes,
right.
and was able to interweave beautiful songs within that time period. It wasn't a hindrance. It was something that he used to bounce off of. That's not the right thing, but he was able to just make it all work. Like, okay, we gotta give the advertisers what they need. We gotta give the identification of the station. We can do all of that. And how he wove in all those pieces. He was very masterful. And he taught Wanda Ramos well. I got to bring Wanda back into the conversation because he taught her so well that when he left the station the first time, the station did not suffer because she was able to program the radio that no one other than his voice and his presence being absent, and you felt, Frankie's not here, but the music, it stayed consistent. It stayed number one. And then she was able to take that and go somewhere else and create a name for herself because she was not able to have her own name at BLS. They unfortunately, when we talk about petty stuff, the bad thing about inner city was that other than Frankie, no one else, they did not celebrate people. They did not give them their moment to say, oh my God, they're part of us. Isn't this exciting? She had to go somewhere else to really make a name for herself and duplicate. Well, I don't want to say that's wrong. She went somewhere else to use her talent, her gifting, because she too had a gift. That they had a really good partnership. She gleaned so much from him, and he wasn't intimidated by her. When he left, he knew everything was in good hands. I'm going to California. I'm going blah, blah, blah. I'm going to France. I'm going wherever he was going. He always knew that everything was well. He never came back with anything being in disarray. And I think he had a really good, he had good instincts for people. He had good instincts for her. He had good instincts for you. because um, I'm gonna I'm gonna take a little sidebar here. The thing that I loved about radio in that time and records was that it you had mentioned this earlier when Pete Costain came to you and said, I got this guy, he might be good. You should meet him. That you took him on based on someone else's reference. They
Right.
they didn't come with, oh, they studied at so and so, they worked at so and so.
Right.
That was very much how it was in the business back then. It was
Right.
all, May likes this guy. Okay, bring him in. I heard this person. Okay, bring him in. It was so new. Everything was so new during that time.
Right. Right.
It was so exciting. And the R&B, I don't want to say the department, but the R&B of music at that time was very family. Like whether you were in New
Yeah.
York or California, it was a small community.
It was small, right? Right.
And everybody knew everybody and everybody got along. Even and what I loved is that we even protected those good for nothing people that were in the business. It was like, yeah, but you can't talk about them. I can talk about them, but you can't talk about them.
Right.
That there was always somebody there to defend you, to look out for you, that community. And it still is true. I mean, it has dwindled even more, but that the love of the community, the looking out, that is the thing that I would say I bring forward, was that learning of, this is the community, this is the tribe. You take care of them, you take care of people, and then you call them out. Like I love this guy, but this dog of a record is not going to get played this time. I just want you to know it ain't going to happen. Thank you. We'll bring you next week. You'll have another record, and we'll work on it.
Yeah.
That was always my thing.
Right.
Because sometimes you have record people who would make it seem like they were going to lose their job at that moment. What is the legacy that you would like to leave behind? Because you've done a lot, but what do you feel your legacy is that you want to leave behind?
When I think about my legacy, I think about God. I think about an overall picture of how I live my life, and when I told my daughter when she was little, when she was in school, she got really good grades, but sometimes she'd have a B plus and she'll feel she should A or something like that. And I said, Crystal, did you do the best you can? She said, yeah. I said, that's all expected of you. That's all I expect of you. That if you can ask yourself that I do the best I can. So that's what I think my legacy would be for myself. You do the best you can. If I looked at my life, I should have done other different, but everybody can look back and say that. So I finally got to a point where I don't think about that anymore. I just think about, who did I help? Did I do good things when I had the chance? And I did. So I feel satisfied with my life. And I mean, listen, I was so good because I call you an MF in the morning. I mean, if it's like that, but I mean, in my heart, I wouldn't go out of my way to hurt anybody or do any, as sidebar, Kamala, somebody asked Kamala what's her favorite cuss word.
Oh, yes.
And she said, it starts with an M and it ends with a not ER, but I said, I knew I loved that woman. I said, I know, she is so cool. I mean, because sometimes you just have to go there, but so I'm just a very real person, and I've never been an ass kisser, and maybe that I should have been more of an ass kiss in the business, but I just couldn't. I couldn't do it to get where I wanted to go. You know what I'm saying? So I just did what I thought was right. So I made this long, but my legacy, I she did the best she could.
Is there anything you would like people to know about the record business that that you're proud of? Not necessarily you, but just that you, or maybe that is a misnomer that you want to straighten out. Like, what is something about the record business that people should know about?
Well, I can't say that today because it's a whole total, it's so new. To me, the record industry today is like a foreign language. I was blessed to come up when people, like when you have ideas and you get it done. Today, everything goes, is the most unbelievable thing. Everything goes to upstairs. I mean, I can't believe these program directors with all these big names can't make a decision. You know what I mean? If you give them a good piece of product, they can't add it. It's got to have all these stations on it, and then the record companies are involved with all the tours and the artists on tour. They put in the package. You know that, right?
No.
All this. Well, these huge record companies and all the promoters that put up the tours and stuff, they all in cahoots. So like how you could get people signed before, you can't get them signed like that. They got to know upstairs, know somebody that knows somebody, and that's how these artists get signed today. Unless it's like, this is an old tired story, but I wasn't involved in the business then. But I hear stories about Elvis Presley and those people. They would get in a car and they would just drive. And when they see that antenna up as a radio station, and they would go over there and park, and they go in and say, "My name is, and can you play this?" And if people would listen to it, I guess in another studio, and if they like it, they would play it. Dolly Parton telling these stories. That stuff is no more. People going, the people that should be able to tell if music's good, they have no place. Now it's all through corporate this and corporate that.
It's all about analytics. It's all about numbers and
money.
Analytics. How does it fit? Yeah, it's
right. And it breaks my heart because music is creative. It's a creative thing, and so all that's gone. I mean, you might. Well, quite a few rappers came out because they started their own label, and they just drove around and sold their own music. And then, so if you do something like that and just get it, making so much noise, they can play it.
Right.
But it's like sitting in there, they can't make those. I called up some top names. I'm not going to tell you who they were, programmers that, because I still know a few people. And I couldn't believe how their hands were tied. And they tell you, it's not like it used to. So while you're in radio, then why don't you get another? I mean, the whole part of radio, it was all the creativity about the music. And so now somebody's telling you what to do. And, all day long, your work is like following behind. So I can't tell you nothing about the record industry today. And I can't tell you nothing about, all I can tell people is if they find something that they're passionate about and they like it, just work hard at it. Just, and just believe it.
And bring your excellent game. Make sure you are doing excellent work. Because I think that's another thing. People were about excellence. Today, not so much. They're more about
money.
How famous can I get? How
much money? Yeah.
That's right. I'm gonna get very famous, but it's really about excellence. It's really about bringing your A game to the table and your heart to the table as an artist to bring what you can. Because I do believe that saying is true. The cream always rises to the top. If you do your work and you show up and you keep doing it, people are going to take notice of you. It's just a matter of time. Don't give up. Don't give up, because it's there. You know, the thing that God tells us is that, you know, our job is to plant, water, and God is the one who gives the increase.
Right.
Doesn't say how long to plant, doesn't say how long to water.
Right.
And it doesn't say when he's going to give the increase, but it tells us to do those three things and it will come. It says, if you pray and you believe, you will have what you pray for. You know, and going back to what you said about Frankie earlier, is that he always spoke into existence what he wanted. He was very good about that, you know, and the Bible tells us, and God said, and so it was. And God said it, and it was. So that we have power to speak the word into existence. We get to say, this is what I'm doing. This is what's showing up.
And believe it.
It is. That's right. And believe it.
Believe it. When I look back at my life, my dad told me that he saw me dancing to hillbilly music, and I was about a year and a half. And he thought it was funny. I don't know hillbilly from the blues, but in Alabama, where I came from, they had 15 minutes of Black music on the radio a day. That's it, 15 minutes. And so all we heard was country western, so I'm dancing. But as far back as I can remember, I always loved music, Lydia. Always, always, like, music is in my heart. And I don't remember a time of not liking music. And different kinds of music, you know, even to this day, I like country music too. And so what God did for me, he put me in the right place all the time. I didn't pray to work at a radio station or meet a friend that was a musician artist. But it all just came to me. People ask me how it just came. It like almost fell in my lap. Everything I've done. And it's like that was my, you opening this up by asking a question, because I didn't know that was my plan to do this, but I know this is what I love. And I was able to do it. So I had to give it to God. I wanted it so bad. He just kept giving me that music. You know, even today, I'll have the TV on and I have music playing in the background. How can you concentrate? I said, I don't know. The music it's just calming to me, you know. So, and I think of Frankie a lot because they have a jazz station here that comes on at 7 o'clock to 5, and they play the best jazz. They play Miles Davis, Coltrane, all the stuff that Frankie used to love, and they mix it up really good. And every now and then you might have to hear something that Stevie Wonder songs that some jazz artist did. It's just all mixed. And I often think of Frankie when I have that playing in the background while I'm watching my politics. I have the music. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's how my life went. You know, God just put me in the right place, right time.
Thank you so much for checking us out. Enjoying this episode, please leave us a comment, let us know, and share it with your friends. Don't go anywhere, because we got another fantastic episode for you right now.